Hey, it's Zach here again, and I wanted to talk about adherence and how adherence to your plan is going to make a world of a difference in terms of getting great results. And this is one of the biggest things that no matter what diet you try, the one that's going to be best is the one that you can stick to. So you can have the best diet in the world, it won't matter if you can't do it. So this is why it's such an important thing to really remember and always fall back onto. If you can't stick to something, you need to let your coach know, or you need to reassess what you're doing and how you can make it easier to adhere to. Okay. And the biggest thing here is just remember the long term consistency beats short term intensity. So you could go all out, and if you fall off after a month and you can't get back on the wagon for 6 months, versus the person who's just kind of worked on 1% better each day for 6 months, that person's going to get way better results. So you could just imagine if you just get a little bit better each day, and think about not only for yourself, but maybe some of your friends, and they've done these diets and they stick to it and they lose a lot of weight, but then they just gain it right back. So it really is not all that great. All diets do work. I think this is really important to remember. Um, and I'm sure you have, or you know people who have lost weight at some point, but always ask yourself, what happens? What happens after the diet? I think this is huge because we don't have a weight loss problem. This is huge. People can lose weight, but we have a weight loss maintenance problem. See, what's the point of losing weight if you're going to gain it back? So you have to figure out some ways to develop habits that will last a lifetime. And just remember, like, ingrain in your mind, we don't have a weight loss problem. We have a maintenance problem. People don't know how to maintain their weight. They're either losing weight or they're gaining weight, and they don't know how to do in between. So this is important. And this comes down to habits developed over time that you can stick to. Now, I think the biggest key here is when are you most likely to break your diet? I think this is huge. And there was an actual study that looked into this in 2017 by Foreman, and they took 189 overweight and obese participants and put them on a 12-month behavioral weight loss program. And 3 times throughout that study, the participants had to fill out a questionnaire 6 times per day. And they did it at week 2, um, for 2 weeks at the start. They did it for 1 week at the 6-month mark. And then they did it at 1 week at the 12-month mark. And basically, what they were able to look at was, how often these people fell off their nutrition plan. So, and where they had the lapse in their diet plan as well. Like, not just, what, but where, like, what situation were they in? And did this change throughout the year? I think this was important. The longer you diet, things do change. And basically, a lapse or break from the diet was classified as eating more than intended, eating a food that they had not intended to eat, and eating at a time that the person had not intended. Okay, so again, they classified the lapse in their diets by eating more food than they were supposed to, eating a food that they weren't supposed to be eating, and also eating at a time that was not intended. Okay. And so what were the results? On average, this is huge. People lapse from their diet 4 times per week. Now, remember, this is an average. You had some people that didn't lapse at all, and you had some people that lapsed, say, 8 times in a week. One thing that they found, it was definitely, obviously associated with success too on weight loss. So the people who lapsed less times per week, guess what? They got better results. Okay, so that's pretty obvious, but the people who fell from their diet 8 times per week didn't get very good results. So it was very obvious that adherence is so important to fat loss. But the most common type of falling off the diet was the unintended food intake. So this was like, eating that Snickers bar that was sitting over there that wasn't on the plan, or, you're out and about and your friend orders a beer at dinner, so you order a beer and you weren't planning on having it. That was like the most common issue people had. Now, the most common location was at home. So this was huge. A lot of times we assume that going out to eat is always the worst. And it is, going out to eat does make things hard. But being at home seemed to be the worst place for people where they would eat these unintended foods. And so this was a big deal. The biggest time, common time for people to fall off was in the evening. And so, you're at night and you're hanging out, you're watching your TV show and you're grabbing extra stuff. Um, and it was the risk of lapse was higher on the weekends versus the weekdays. I think a lot of us can resonate with that. That's pretty common for a lot of people. So you see these things, at home in the evening and on the weekends. So we need to be aware of this moving forward throughout your nutrition plan. So let's take a look at this. So what does this tell us? Basically, um, eating foods at home we need to be careful with, right? In the evening and on weekends, we got to watch out for. We need to have a plan for those because the willpower is not going to be enough 6 months from now. Early on, it's great, it's easy. But when you start to get through this, you start losing weight and you start to get fatigued mentally, you need to have a plan. Like, what are you going to do in the evenings? How are you going to make things better? What are you going to do in your home? So one thing you can do is get rid of some of the desirable foods in the house, the foods that you struggle to moderate. Plan evening schedules and activities that can reduce the risk of eating high calorie foods. So maybe at night, you're being active or you're playing a game, something that's actually, keeping you active. So you're not just sitting there bored. Structure your diet so that you are fullest in the times you are most likely to cheat. So you can push more calories to dinner time so you're fuller, right? So you're less likely to snack after dinner, maybe. So those are just a couple options that, obviously on the weekends, again, eat more of your calories later in the day, fill yourself up so you can make better choices later on. And try to have a flexible diet, inclusive diet that allows you to eat different foods so you don't feel like you're completely restricting yourself. And individualize. I mean, the same, obviously the same approach doesn't work for everybody. So make sure you reach out to your coach if you're struggling with something and something needs to be changed, because something can work really well for one person and maybe it doesn't work so well for you. And you've got to experiment, experiment, experiment. This is huge. So, Adherence 101. The best diet is the one you can stick to. The diets that work via suffering and deprivation fail when people no longer want to suffer. So when you're sick and tired of suffering, you're going to fall off the plan. It's just the way it is. And you want to fit your diet to your lifestyle. So when you eat is important. You have tea with the kids, you have busy mornings. Like, think about your lifestyle and what works best for you. If it's easier for you to skip breakfast because you want to get going and you're busy, and then you can push more calories later. If it's easy because you can cut back on when you eat at dinner because you go to bed early, then perfect. Pull back calories on dinner. So you can make these adjustments for yourself. This is really important. And if you like having more meals, less meals, that's the thing. If you enjoy having 3 bigger meals or 2 really big meals, that's awesome. If you like to snack through the day, maybe you do 2 snacks and 3 meals, or maybe you do 5 meals per day. So you can break that up. It's not going to affect your fat loss. The biggest key here is adherence. So if that helps you stick to your plan, do it. And, if I tell everybody to reduce their fats and they love fats, they're not going to stick to the plan. So, do you like fats? Do you like peanut butter? Do you like having avocado? Do you like butter on your stuff? It's important to know that. Then have more fats. If you like carbs more, then you can eat more carbs, just as long as we, as your coaches, know where you're at, where you're going to be, and how we can accommodate and account for all that. That's important. And as I said, what works for one person isn't going to work for another. Now, what we need to also look at too for adherence is we need to set up expectations. And we think that, this weight loss is going to be so perfect and it's going to be a straight line right down and you're going to see some great results straight through. Well, sadly, it doesn't work that way. But it's okay to at least set a goal and a time period, of course. But just remember, to lose weight, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be better. You really don't. And your coaches aren't going to expect that of you. Perfection is not needed. If you have a slip up, it's a slip up. It's not a failure. If you eat a little bit more food, you ate a little bit more food. It's not failure. See, it's not black and white. It's on a gradient, it's on a scale of better or worse. Okay, so if you do eat a little bit more than you're supposed to, it's not the end of the world. Now, we just showed you that graph, or showing you that straight line, a nice straight line of how things work in terms of weight loss, but also sticking to your diet and all of that kind of stuff. And this is really what happens. So this is crazy, right? But that's okay. This is what it really is. But you see the trend going down, and that's really the key. You just a little bit of improvement and weight loss over time. You get to the bottom here, you're excited, something happens, you spike way up here, you're all upset, you think that you've gained all your weight back, when in reality you haven't. You're still lower than when you started. And then all of a sudden you have this big drop in water weight, and you're like, oh my gosh, but this is like, it's a roller coaster. So just be prepared for that. Okay. And it'll probably take you longer to get there. Okay. And this is like, like it says, win or learn here. The key here throughout this whole process is you have wins, and the times that you struggle, you have to learn, and you have to adapt your diet to your lifestyle. And this is going to be huge. So never think that the one plan that you started with is going to last forever. You always have to modify and change as we go. That's really important. And everything's going to be an experiment, and you have to be, a detective and be objective with yourself. And this is a really good concept. Fat loss principles are universal. So a calorie deficit is going to cause you to lose weight. Okay. But fat loss application is individual. So how we get you to a calorie deficit, whether it's tracking calories, tracking portions, eating slower, eating more vegetables, that's individual. Okay. So the principle is the same for everybody. In order to lose fat, you have to be in a calorie deficit, but the application of how we get you there can be different. Now, there was a study in 2005 that showed basically people who were successful with weight maintenance. There are some key principles here. First of all, they achieved their weight loss goal. So the people who achieved their weight loss goal were more successful at maintaining their weight. People who had more initial weight loss. So that might be a little different than you think, but actually more initial weight loss led to better weight maintenance later. Physically active lifestyle. So staying active, doing things, burning more calories, and that being a sustainable thing for you, that's going to help you maintain your weight. Having a regular meal rhythm. So if you eat 3 times a day, sticking to 3 times a day for a long period of time. Personally, I do 3 meals per day consistently with a snack after dinner because I enjoy that. And that's what I do. And it's easy for me to maintain my weight. Less dietary fat. And this is just because dietary fat, like your oils and things like that, are very calorie dense. So if you use a lot of oils and butters in your food, you're more likely to eat more calories. And that's really the problem with it. So it's not that it's bad to eat fat grams. It's just that typically eating a little less led to better weight maintenance. Increased healthy foods seem to be huge for weight maintenance as well. And reduced frequency of snacks. This is a big one because a lot of times we tend to, if people are snacking, they're just, it's almost like mentally you're not even really thinking about the calorie intake you're getting there. Flexible control over eating, self-monitoring, whether that's tracking your calories, doing a food journal, taking pictures, just being aware of your food intake is huge here for weight maintenance. And being able to cope with anytime you fall off the plan, being okay with it, and you just get right back on the plan. That's huge. And capacity to handle cravings. Are you able to say no? And if you can't, you got to know that you can't say no. So you got to have those foods away from your house, away from sight, out of sight, out of mind, right? That's really important. So if you can handle cravings really well, you're probably going to maintain your weight a lot better. If you can't, be aware of that and change your surroundings and autonomy. So hopefully this helps. What we would like for you to do, if you can post on the Team Pello Fitness Facebook page, let us know what you think is going to be a good strategy for you. What do you think? What have you taken from this video? Is it that, before you thought that you had to do this one plan or whatever. But go ahead and post in the Facebook page and let us know what you thought about this video and if you have any questions. Thanks.